All right, we are back in week 4 of our leadership management course. This is our multimedia discussion. My name is Christy Giannoni, and we are looking at emerging leaders in a crisis scenario of our choosing. So for this week, I'm going to be going over the crisis explanation, identifying the themes in the Van Wart chapters, and also locating some supplemental articles. So I actually am ending up changing my crisis scenario from the weeks prior. My selected crisis is going to be a hostage situation at a city council meeting. Some details that I identified is we're going to be focusing specifically starting in the room of the council chambers. What has occurred is the chief of police, who would typically be the law enforcement present at this meeting, has stepped out of the room, and a member of the audience has noticed that and taken advantage of the opportunity, and he has taken the city clerk hostage. So typically a city clerk sits up at the front of a dais located here at that red arrow. And so the member has gotten up, taken her hostage with the use of a firearm. So immediately impact is going to be whoever is at that council meeting. Typically it's about 5 council members, city manager, city attorney, and then who is ever in the audience. So I'm estimating the immediate impact to about 15 people. And for the specifics of these events, I'm having it last about 5 hours. Obviously, the aftermath would last for days, weeks, and months for certain individuals. Immediately affected would be the individuals who are located inside. And then as the scene would play out, there would be an impact to everybody who is in about a 2-block radius as they work to secure the area. So that would include commerce-wise, any of the businesses that are located in the area. There would obviously be traffic barricades, and then any of the residential areas around the city hall. So for that immediate impact, it would be the surrounding area until there is no further threat to public safety. And then days after the impact, may be limited staffing at city facilities, possibly city facility closures. So for the 4 time frames that I have identified in the leaders that I'm going to be taking a look at, it's going to be a 3-minute leader, which is going to end up being the mayor. I did use a little bit of my background specifically for the mayor that I have on my council. So this individual is a pastor in the community and also the police chaplain. The next time frame is going to be a 3-hour leader, which is going to emerge as the chief of police as he coordinates the hostage negotiations and trying to get some of the individuals out of the room. The third time frame is going to be the 3-day leader. You're going to see that that's emerging as the city manager as he starts to talk to the community members, help coordinate any of the services that need to be provided to employees who are impacted and to businesses that was impacted. So you'll see him emerge as this charismatic leader trying to facilitate the communications with various different stakeholders. And then the 4th time frame I'm going to be looking at is a 3-month leader, which is going to be a crisis impact team that will include a couple different people. And that would be those individuals who are helping to facilitate counseling services for those who are impacted. Again, that coordination of businesses and community members. And then likely some type of law enforcement leader who's going to help with a threat assessment and seeing what council meetings would look like in the future after a crisis like this would occur. So first up, going in chapter order, chapter 1, the concept that I chose to focus on is our leaders born or made? And the leader in the time frame that would relate to is the mayor at the 3-minute mark. So I found this interesting because obviously the individual has traits and characteristics that would help them to emerge in the scenario. So I picture that there is an individual who has gotten up and is holding somebody hostage with a firearm. The mayor is going to try to calm the situation down, to immediately take control of the room. And because she is already a staple in the community as the police chaplain, as the mayor, as a pastor, I think people would automatically look to her for some sort of leadership, and she would have that charisma to be able to do so. Again, this is that personality-based leadership, and it points out the attributions of heroic or extraordinary leadership abilities, and that would be what would emerge during this 3-minute mark. The article that I found to supplement this concept and how it relates to my crisis leader and time frame, the article explored situation situationism and the qualities that make a leadership successful. And so it was looking at the two different concepts, how do we really identify that the situation a person finds themselves in doesn't bring out certain traits, or if they were just born with some type of qualities, personality traits that make them a great leader. In chapter 2, I took a look at inspirational style leadership and applied this to the city manager at the 3-day mark. The book talks about this style of leadership, having the individual utilize their wisdom and integrity to calm the community and guide any of those who are involved. So I think that 3-day mark is going to be not only talking to the media, the community, the employees, so they're really going to need that leadership style, but with this type of event, that compassionate, inspirational characteristics and traits that this theory talks about. The article that I found elaborated on inspirational leadership qualities such as integrity, charisma, drive, and vision, just giving a little bit more context to what qualities would fall under being inspirational. Chapter 3, I took a look at the concept of leader-member exchange theory, and I applied this to that crisis impact team at the 3-month mark. Again, those are individuals who are going to be comprised of what I envision as maybe an HR manager, the city manager, again, a leadership person of rank in a police department like the police chief or somebody that was assigned, possibly a community member. And so I think the different qualities that these individuals would have, they would all have to be some type of leaders, but they would emerge as different qualities in the different levels of the group. The article that I found supplemented my findings by exploring how the group size can play a role. So if this happened in a small community, or how many people were chosen to focus on how to handle the situation at the 3-month mark could make an impact on how the leadership styles emerge and change. In chapter 4, I took a look at charismatic leadership and again applied it to that mayor at the 3-minute mark. As a reminder, charismatic leadership really focuses on that personality of the leader and leadership traits. Particularly, this mayor would have a calming demeanor with those qualities that I described and the training and background that she has, that community present. But I really believe that in that moment of chaos, the first thing that somebody's going to want to do is try to calm, people's instincts in a crisis scenario. They're going to want to get up and run. They're going to be panicked. They're not going to be listening. And so I think having that individual in the room who already has a community presence, the meeting would have likely occurred and they would have been speaking up and identifying themselves as the mayor. And so I believe that would assist them in the crisis scenario immediately, which I did it for a 3-minute time frame. The article that I found supplemented the chapter by exploring the responsibility that comes with that power of being a charismatic leader. So I found that very interesting that it talked about the good and the harm that somebody with this type of leadership style could cause. So being charismatic doesn't necessarily mean that you could do good, try to do something great for your community, step up in a leadership position like in this crisis scenario. So I found that article was very interesting in trying to learn more about this leadership style. Chapter 5, I took a look at the concept of super leadership theory by Mans and Sims, and I applied it to the leader of the chief of police at the time frame of the 3-hour mark. Again, this theory talks about the phrase that you often hear is leading others to lead themselves. Because the chief of police was out of the room, I specifically set up the scenario so that they were not directly in the room able to make an immediate action. And so they're going to be coordinating outside of the room, the SWAT team, crisis negotiation team, and while they're doing that, they're assisting the 3-minute leader of the mayor and guiding them in kind of what to do. So there is a panic button in the room that maybe they would have pressed, and maybe there's a phone in there that he's able to provide some guidance. And so I also found an article to supplement this idea. And the article talked about how teamwork allows professionals to combine their unique individual expertise. And I think in a crisis scenario, that's really important because there's not a lot of time to discuss what steps you're going to take next. So having those leadership qualities emerge in different individuals is going to help the situation move along in a certain manner. In chapter 6, I took a look at the concept of the ethical leader as a spiritual mentor and applied that to the city manager at the 3-day mark. The chapter in the book talks about the need to assist and to make a difference. I think that would be really important. There's going to be a lot of different variables, and the person is going to be needing to lead a community, lead their employees in a certain way, and with the crisis that I chose, it's going to be a very sensitive manner. There's going to be a lot of different feelings that are involved, emotions that are involved in various different stakeholders and people who are affected by the crisis. The chapter talks a lot about compassion, making a difference, and engaging in emotional healing. So I thought that was really important for, not right in that first 3-minute time frame where there's immediate action that needs to be taken place, but kind of 3 days where the dust settles, emotions are starting to, kick in, set in, and the impact of what happened to those affected is really starting to take precedence. And the article that I found to supplement the reading talked about the different factors that can enhance leadership effectiveness. And I thought that was important. There's different tools and techniques that an individual can use to kind of, I imagine, something that I could apply to this situation that the city manager would utilize, a social media platform or a way to get messaging out to employees, to the community members. So I thought that was very interesting and tied into how you could utilize some different techniques to boost that leadership specifically as a spiritual mentor. All right, last 2 chapters. Chapter 7, I took a look at the concept of strategic leadership theory, applying it to that 3-hour mark with our chief of police. In Chapter 7, in regards to strategic leadership theory, it highlights the importance of adaptive leadership. This crisis could have so many different variables, and I think being able to be that presence of a chief of police with the other qualities that we talked about, being able to negotiate various amount of staff, personnel, getting resources, but you don't know exactly what's going to happen inside with this individual who is taking the city clerk hostage. With the other members of the community, we're not sure how they're going to react, and so having that strategic style to be able to adapt and to maneuver to the various different factors that can happen would really make this chief of police person stand out as a leader and have a lot of people looking to him. The journal article that I found was very interesting because it's focused specifically on public relations, and I think people who are in positions of authority and administration really have that public relations mentality. And so it explored the ideas of relationship building and strategic decision-making capabilities. And so I think, again, that training that this individual would have would emerge for the specific time frame and being strategic in how they're leading individuals and leading resources. For the last chapter, chapter 8, I took a look at competency-based leadership, and I applied it to that 3-month mark of this crisis impact team who's taking a look at a couple different variables 3 months after the crisis has occurred. I think the leaders in this group would need to show that they can be effective in what they're doing and not just meeting and talking, but making change, strategizing to make employees feel comfortable, to make the community aware that these analyses are happening. And so I think that effectiveness, that competency-based leadership of this group is going to be really important because they're going to be relied upon. There's a lot of responsibility in what they would be tasked with doing. The article that I found expanded on leadership experience for a certain group. So the stage of the scenario would give people an opportunity to develop leadership skills that they maybe didn't know they had, maybe emerge as an individual in this crisis impact team. Maybe it's the HR director, maybe it's, again, the chief of police. So I think that that article was very interesting because it talks about, if you're in this type of crisis scenario, what leadership skills it could bring out. All right, so thank you once again to listening to my multimedia presentation. Everyone have a safe and healthy Memorial Day weekend. And until next week, until we chat again.